Hello everybody. So this video is entitled MSTR Crash, True Nonsense. Bitcoin is at 64,700 as I record this. The low of February 2026, you may remember, was in the mid 63,000 roughly. At least that was the end of day close for that day. So we are pretty much at a multi-year low for Bitcoin, and that on absolutely no news, if you ask me. A little bit better of a jobs report, and still no development on the Middle East, which at this point, I think nobody could be faulted to think that the Middle East situation is going to last as long as, I don't know, the other situation, the other crisis going on in another part of Eastern Europe, for example. I mean, it could last for years. So there's no development in the Middle East. It could last for years. And the job market came out a little better than anticipated. So the bonds were up today. And we crashed. Why did we crash so hard? Probably because market makers are trying to liquidate people. But, we are losing long-term investors in Bitcoin for a very long term now. Like, some people are exiting and not coming back. We need to do something about this manipulation. My chart here looks, we're down 11.5% in 5 days. We're not. We're down 12% in 2 days is what's going on. We're down 12% in 2 days. 12% in 2 days. So everybody's panicking. We are panic selling anything related to Bitcoin and Bitcoin itself. And this is after, of course, a really, really bad day yesterday. Yesterday was pretty awful. Yesterday's strategy was down 9%. Bitcoin was down 6%. Stretch depegged to 96.70. Today we're down, well, it's actually unfortunately much higher than that now. Today we're down nearly 8% as I screenshot this low 126 now. So my screenshot was 30 minutes old. So we're in 126 now for MSTR. And the IBIT is like in 36 and change. And Stretch has been below 94 much of the day, actually. 95.01 is a miracle. I got that screenshot. But high 94 for Stretch. And of course, this is happening because Bitcoin is essentially at a multi-year low. And that happened overnight in no time because of manipulation. And the market makers are rejoicing. Billions of dollars in liquidations already. Billions of dollars in liquidations already. I believe we need regulation ASAP. You shouldn't have two bots allowed to trade with each other in order to influence the price. That shouldn't be a thing. So anyways, strategy specifically. Let's talk about strategy specifically. What triggered the extra sell-off in strategy? Because strategy sold off way more than Bitcoin, unfortunately. Strategy underperformed Bitcoin today, unfortunately. So what is it? I think the 32 Bitcoin sell, I think that was a mistake. Sailor thought he was inoculating the rating agencies, making them see that they can actually sell the Bitcoin. I think this inoculated social media, and this made lack of depth headlines all over the internet. All over the internet, we see headlines like this. Oh, never sold, sold. Never sell, sold. People claiming that Sailor inoculated the crash, the Bitcoin crash, and we see trending again. People claiming margin calls, etc. Oh, he's gonna have a margin call, even though if you know the capital structure of strategy, you know there's no such thing as margin calls for strategy. But that's not the only thing, right? At the beginning of the day, you had very famous people calling for Bitcoin going to 20K. And now that Bitcoin is supposedly below 65, well, it is below 65, so people are like, oh, we broke a long-term support, and now I see people, big accounts, calling for 10K. It's a bunch of kids. It's a bunch of kids who's influencing this market. And so I understand some people just want to be entirely out of it and move towards something more intellectual, except I still have to look for the part of the market which is more intellectual, right? AI is definitely trading on hype too. So what is it? And stocks can be in New York for years. The market has looked more and more like a casino. It's very unfortunate. TradFi is probably also doubling down, triggering the sell of MSTR. Probably lots of shorts, lots of people shorting MSTR, amplifying the movements. Here's the thing. Here's what I think we should do. I think Moody's, S&P will never respect Bitcoin or strategy. I just don't think they will. Just like they didn't respect Tesla for the longest time. Just like I think they're going to take a very long time, a lot of these traditional analysts, I think they're going to take a very long time respecting companies like HIMS, respecting companies like BNPL companies, right? Buy now, pay later. Respecting disruptors like SoFi. A lot of these old, entrenched, established world wants nothing to do with the new, and they will just ignore it as long as they can. And so I think the solution to this issue, if we want to convince the rating agencies to actually see us favorably, the key is not to convince the rating agencies. We should just create our own independent rating agency. The Bitcoin world, the treasury companies, the exchanges, the miners, they should get together, create their own rating agencies, and rate their own stuff, their own bonds, their own companies, their own stocks, rate them investment grade or not, and make it independent, but also start rating other entities using a Bitcoin standard. Because you see, an S&P or a Moody's, they can't really downgrade a country that easily. Because if they downgrade, say, the sovereign rating of a country, they know they can send that country on a deep debt spiral. Same for a company. There's a lot of consequences for these companies downgrading a big company. So they're very, very careful about doing it. If we create a brand new agency, you don't have to maintain the status quo. You could just start rating cities, rating governments, rating companies using the Bitcoin standard. And over time, maybe the Bitcoin standard becomes a real thing, and maybe the Bitcoin rating agency is the one that becomes more trusted by the market. If you don't trust the meter, change the meter. And that's something that I think you should do. Let's rate TradFi. Let's rate Trad Debt, Trad Banks. The meter, i.e. the rating agency, the meter is not accurate. The meter is longer than a meter one day and shorter than a meter another day. So we need another measuring stick. And I think Saylor could help create that new measuring stick. And if Saylor was not trying to earn the respect from the trad rating agencies, if he was not trying to earn their respect, he probably wouldn't have bought back their 0% debt. And I think a lot of people are mistakenly assuming that this could mean he can't pay the dividend because people can't do math. So to be fair, buying back that debt was not a bad deal for strategy. They bought it back at an 8% discount. It's accretive. They made money. But I think they wouldn't have done that if they were not trying to convince the rating agencies. They did that because they want to show less debt ahead in the capital structure, ahead of stretch in the capital structure. So Saylor is trying to retire the debt, the convertible debt that is ahead of stretch in the capital structure. But when you see that stretch is trading at 95, clearly in insight, that was a mistake to do that, even though on face value, on its face, that was not a bad deal because we bought it back at a discount. Now, selling Bitcoin, on the other hand, that was totally pointless. I don't understand why we sold so little. All we did by selling a little Bitcoin is triggering an insane amount of Ponzi schemes, claims, and we just got an insane amount of FUD. All we did by selling 32 Bitcoin is a teeny tiny tax loss harvest of probably $1 million, maybe less than $1 million, and billions of dollars of capital losses from people using that, Saylor sold as, hey, he's going to have a margins call, he's selling, Bitcoin's going to crash. Imagine when he sells 800,000 Bitcoin's going to crash. We inoculated bad social media. That's kind of what I think we need. We inoculated bad social media. So we shouldn't have done that. That was a mistake. I hope he doesn't do it again. And Saylor learns. Saylor tends to learn. I think Saylor could make a statement. He's done selling Bitcoin. We're not selling Bitcoin. But anyways, it's not my first rodeo. I'm never surprised by Bitcoin price action. I won't reissue my selling Bitcoin at 250 story thinking I was real smart selling Bitcoin. As the joke goes, I also know people who sold Netflix at $8 and they thought they were really, really smart. But nonetheless, Bitcoin is the toughest asset to hold. There are no tougher assets to hold because, frankly, some of the crypto followers that Bitcoin attracts is just not good for the ecosystem, and it's just gamblers. And we feed them. When we have headlines, when Saylor says he sold 32 Bitcoin, which he clearly didn't want to do in my book, we're just feeding the FUD. So let's talk concretely. Is MSTR in trouble? No, MSTR is not at all in trouble. Not at all. Contrary to what the internet would have you believe. The internet would have you believe that we're going to go on the margin call, but we're not. Ex-dividends due June 15, and the pay date is June 30th. We have $10 billion of stretch outstanding. That's a little more than $1 billion a year. 11 billion. Sorry, 1100 million. So 1.1 billion a year roughly we have to pay. Back of a napkin math, we have about $100 million payment on stretch coming up. Ex-div is June 15, pay date is June 30th. So we got a few weeks to go. But the reserve is 900 million. And Sailor raised 128 million last week. So we have more than $1 billion in cash, 1.2 billion in cash, 1.028 billion in cash we got. So we got 10x more cash than what we have to pay for stretch. Yet stretch is trading at 95 as if he wasn't going to pay the payment. And by the way, there's another 50 million, of course, to pay. People are scared about that. There's another 50 million to be paid on the other prefers, the Stream, the Stride, the Strife. That is also not a problem at all because we have more than $1 billion of cash on the balance sheet. And even if we didn't, we're still trading at a positive MNAV of a 1.19. Now, a lot of the debate about that, a lot of the FUD goes, pick and choose your MNAV. So people go ahead and they calculate their MNAV where they count the preferred as debt, where they assume that Sailor is going to repay the converts instead of converting them to stock. And then they end up with a bearish MNAV of 0.95. And they start saying, oh, look, he actually lost money by selling shares. It all depends how you calculate the MNAV. I believe 1.19 is the right MNAV. So to me, if you sell $100 for 119, you're still being accretive. So if you sell 100 million of shares, you're still making 19 million. That's at least in my book how I view it. I don't think Sailor is going to have any issue paying this dividend, and it does not need to sell Bitcoin to pay this dividend. It just doesn't. Contrary to what the FUD and the headlines would have you think. And of course, it's better for the headlines to say that he needs to, but he doesn't. So it's true nonsense. It's total nonsense. The market is moving away from reason and moving into extreme fear, and it only took 2 days. Bitcoin crashed like mad. 64,700, we crashed like mad. There's no other way to say it. It makes absolutely no sense. As if the asset was 12% less valuable today than it was, 36 hours ago, literally, like 30 to 40 hours ago. That makes absolutely no sense. The internet is freaking out. Fear and Greed is at a 24. That's the one I use for Crypto Fear and Greed. Some people prefer to use the Bitcoin Fear and Greed specifically, which is an account on X, and it's 11. So people are extremely, extremely fearful, selling it all off. And I really don't know why. What are they doing? Are they accumulating fiat? Yeah, fiat is not as transparent as Bitcoin. Fiat doesn't publish everything that Bitcoin publishes. We don't have enough data on fiat, and so we have no idea how many fiats there are out there. They're printing like mad. Banks are creating money like mad, but you don't see it, right? You don't have a count. You don't see it. So people want to get the cash. This is very frustrating. I understand why people are leaving the space permanently. I really do. This is extremely frustrating. The problem is, what's not frustrating right now? That's the problem. What is not frustrating? Remember, even indices can drop a lot. You may remember in 2020, during the events of 2020, the S&P 500 dropped 30%. So even in bonds crashed. Government bonds crashed the past 5 years. Absolute crash as we raised the rates in the biggest in history, 20x more than anticipated. Where's the safe haven, right? Is real estate the safe haven? I'm not so sure, because real estate you don't have the bids. You have a huge bid-ask spread. You may be sitting on a house 3 years waiting to sell it. So to me, this is still the least objectionable asset. But I'm very used to volatility at this point. But the frustration is real, and unfortunately, as Bitcoin grows even bigger, I think the frustration is going to be even more real as we move forward. But strategy didn't deserve this. But a lot of stocks don't deserve their stock price. A lot of stocks are executing flawlessly, and they don't get the price that they deserve. Such is life. I still fundamentally believe that if we stop having macro crises every 6 months, perhaps after 2029, the market will go back to a less volatile, more stable environment. That's at least what I firmly hope. But right now, it's true nonsense. It's extremely frustrating, and I share your frustration. But this too shall pass. This too shall pass. I'll conclude with Churchill's quote. Anyways, this was not investment advice. This is not financial advice. This is only entertainment. I'm hoping you were entertained. Please like, please subscribe, follow me on Patreon, follow me on X. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful, wonderful day.